Well, good evening, everybody. First of all, we'll acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, work and play. We'll pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and recognise their continued connection to these lands and waterways. We acknowledge our shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and people. So now I will declare the public forum open and welcome the community members that are here today for the webcast, and also to make some comments. We have 7 speakers tonight to make some comments about the matters that are going to be considered later on in the formal council meeting. We're holding this today to hear from those members who have registered to speak, and just to remind them that if they are wanting to put a submission in based on what they've said, they are 2 separate processes. Your speech doesn't count as a submission. You need to put it in a submission separately if you wish to. Just to remind speakers that it is being webcast. That means that your image and what you say is being recorded, and you may upset some people and they will go you for defamation, and we take no responsibility for that as the council. So just to remind speakers that you need to be careful with what you say. First of all, I've got to actually ask the staff. They know who's speaking. Do you have any conflicts of interest to declare? I don't believe there is. So we'll move on from that. And for speakers, just to remind you that it is 3 minutes only. And I will be pretty firm, given that there's a number of speakers here tonight. So I'll be pretty firm on it. I think you get a warning signal with 30 seconds to go. So you'll hear a warning signal. That's 30 seconds. And I would ask you to then start to wind up. So we'll move off, and we sort of address speakers in the way they come up on the agenda, or the item comes up on the agenda. So the first off tonight, is actually also the last, is Kevin Brooks. So Kevin is speaking on the monthly financial report for August 2023.
The August consolidated report forecasts that income from rates this year will be a whopping 421 million. Just 3 years ago, it was 331 million. Over 3 budgets since democracy was suspended, income from rates has risen by an eye-watering 90 million per year, close to a 30% increase in just 3 years, with more phased increases in the pipeline. To put that in perspective, the administrator is on public record as saying he needed 11 million per year to repay loans from the financial crisis. He is now raising 8 times that in extra rates. The final operating deficit in the year of the financial collapse was 60 million. Council is now plundering far more per year than that from ratepayers. This shows that the burden of the financial turnaround has been borne almost exclusively by ratepayers, even more so when you add asset sales on top. But whilst all this money gushing into council coffers may have papered over the cracks of the financial crisis, it has not solved this council's underlying problems in poor management, low productivity, poor culture, inefficiency, and insufficient prioritisation. We see that council managers still cannot produce reports on time for this, the most senior governance meeting in the organisation. Council's financial strategy, adopted 12 months ago, promised that financial performance ratios would be reported on a monthly basis. The administrator himself stated at the time, and I quote, "We need to keep an eye on these 5 key metrics on a monthly basis. If any of them turn red, questions need to be asked immediately." Well, we can't keep an eye on them because they haven't been updated since June. Another commitment that hasn't been met. It was the same last month when the Dogs in Open Spaces report wasn't available for the meeting, or even the day after, as promised. Is this symptomatic of a culture cascading from weak tone at the top, in which performance and deadlines are unimportant? My advice to the next council will be to include the quality and timeliness of reports to the governing body in the Chief Executive's appraisal process. As at March this year, this council had the same number of staff as it did at merger in May 2016, based on the administrator's preferred measure of FTE, including vacant posts. Given the service cuts and performance decline since then, This means the same number of people are producing less, which means productivity has fallen. This council raises significantly more in rates, spends more, but does less and performs worse. What is to be done? Well, I will be addressing these issues in more detail with an evidence-based presentation next Wednesday, 4th of October, at 11:30 a.m. at the Arimba RSL Club. If anyone in the public gallery is interested, please come along. I hope to cover the causes of the financial crisis, the public inquiry, current council performance, the role of elected councillors and the challenges they will face in turning things round when democracy returns next September.
Kevin, I'll have to ask you to finish up.
I have finished.
Thank you. Our second speaker tonight is Joy Cooper, who's speaking on item 2.4, the request to prepare a planning proposal reclassification. Joy.
Errors, mistakes and lack of care. Firstly, the council recommendation notes advice provided by the local planning panel and confirms that no rezoning is proposed as part of the planning proposal to reclassify council land identified in attachment 1. Even a mediocre real estate person knows and understands zonings matter a great deal. If you aren't rezoning these sites, you are leaving the fat for the purchaser and, in my opinion, not acting in the best interest of the residents of the Central Coast. Next, why are you continuing to sell off community land when the Big Four bank, which you refuse to name but claim demanded the land sell-off ultimatum, has dollar value has well and truly been exceeded? Then there's the council document which refers to the Austin Butler land being frequented by undesirables, and the note that a former director of council has been told numerous times that land cannot be sold. Then there's the error in the previous council resolution where even the lot number had been incorrect. Why do you continue to claim community classified land can't be sold when these lots are community land and all you're doing is changing the classification to operational to sell them off? I also need to mention the Gosford Bowling Club doesn't even have the correct address in the current council agenda. The address is Dane Drive, not Dane Street. These may be small things, but they matter. Resolutions must be correct, or are the staff setting up another mess for another elected council to discover down the track when the damage has been done? You're currently reclassifying 80 lots across various suburbs, but you only allow 2 speakers per agenda item at this forum. That sure doesn't allow opportunities for speakers to speak on council issues. Why, with so many lots and so many changes, I could easily register to speak in favour of the reclassification to community land and against the reclassification from community land on the one agenda item. Really, this item should have been split into 2 items. In closing, will the public hearing be like the last public hearing? Will we have to find a security guard to ask for directions? Will it be in a hot plastic tent? Corporate marquee. Will the sun be in our eyes? Will the freight trains be running through next to us? Will there be peak hour traffic above? Will we have to turn off one of the noisy fans so we can hear? And will there be no PA system? Will the presentation be impossible to see? Will we register to speak, be clear that 20 people in the room objected with only 1 in favour, and then the sale still proceed? I ask you to do the right thing by the community on this occasion and tell the staff to do their job properly. Why ask the local planning panel for advice, then ignore it?
Thank you, Joy. And just for the gallery, I will be asking the staff to be able to respond to some of the points that have been raised by speakers. Next, the third speaker is Coral Roberts, who's also speaking on item 2.4.
Welcome to country first and not be on the
It'll eat into your time.
Yes.
No, it eats into your time.
Okay, all right. Okay. I stand before you to address a pressing concern that affects us all, the heat island effect. Our urban landscapes are heating up, but it is essential to remember that we should be working with Mother Nature, not against her. Selling off the trend area of Austin Butler adds to the current heat island. We need these trees. Planting of new trees will not replace these magnificent trees that we will lose. These should never be lost. They are a part of Woy Woy and they are ours. Removing trees makes way to make way for a car park might seem like progress, but it's not addressing the real issues of climate change. In fact, it's making it worse. Trees are nature's solution to cooling our environment, reducing carbon dioxide and providing habitat for many species. When we cut them out, we're not only hurting ourselves, but we're our future generations, which we all need to take in consideration. Think about your grandchildren. What example are we setting for them? Are you happy to teach them that animals and trees don't matter, that only money and greed matters? This does not sit well with me or my mom. They should be shown that we value the environment, that substantially this is more important than short-term gains. Let's not forget now, more than 2,000 signatures stand against this sell-off. It's time to rethink your actions and commit to preserving our environment for the sake of our children, your children, my children, our grandchildren, and all our future children. Let the Peninsula Plaza create their own solutions to the building design problem, and don't give in so quickly with our community land. Not only do we want to keep the trees, we also want our picnic tables and play equipment back in the park that was taken long before COVID outbreak. You said at your last meeting you would listen to the residents. Why are you saying that at the same time going ahead with the sell-off? We have made it very clear, the community. I have worked hard for this and we are here for the end. We will fight and protect our trees. The community has been telling you since 2021 that we want to keep Austin Butler and our reserve for our public recreation. Can you instruct the staff to respect the community wishes and stop the seller of this land? We need to do it for all of us.
Thank you for that. And our fourth speaker is Peter O'Donnell, who's actually speaking in favour of item 2.4.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. I'm speaking this evening in support of the recent classification process for that portion of Austin Butler Reserve that lies between Peninsula Plaza Shopping Centre. The plaza has been established in the heart of Woy Woy business district for over 30 years. Our main occupant of the shopping centre is Woolworths and has been an integral part of the shopping centre over that time.
Okay, please let people speak.
They are also one of the main employers within the Woy Woy area. From the time that the centre was initially established, the way the various businesses carry out deliveries has changed dramatically, with the use of much larger semi-articulate vehicles being used. This is something that was not envisaged at the time the centre was initially designed. The issues that we are having are several and cannot be fixed within existing confines of the shopping centre. They are as follows: deliveries, interactions with customers of the centre. At present, the semi-trailers come in off Blackwall Road and drive right across the front entrance of the shopping centre, where customers are walking from their cars into the mall. This is extremely dangerous, and as you would be aware, there are numerous older patients
Please, can we
who
have
visit the
quiet?
centre.
Continue, please.
Delays with traffic entering / exiting the centre, where the semi-trailers get in position where they have to reverse into the loading dock area, which protrudes into the car park. Whilst all this is happening, the net effect is that the vehicular traffic entering and exiting the centre grinds to a halt. And at times, traffic delays also spill over into Blackwall Road, the loading dock. The relocation of the loading dock will make the functioning of the deliveries much safer than what is existing for customers and staff. All the issues would be resolved with the addition of Austin Butler Reserve into the shopping centre development. It should also be noted that the plaza has for years experienced severe antisocial behaviour from visitors within the subject portion of Austin Butler Reserve, which has impacted on the centre's customers as they come in and from their cars to the plaza. This is often necessitated with the intervention of New South Wales Police. In closing, we believe that the reclassification would be of benefit to not only the shopping centre but the wider community, should as the change in classification would enable it to be used to rectify the shortcomings in regards to deliveries, loading, WHS and interactions between customers and the traffic, so as to create a safe and secure shopping experience for the patrons of the shopping centre. You can clap now.
Thank you. And our fifth speaker is Matthew Wales, who's also speaking in favour of item 2.4.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, for the opportunity to address Council this evening in relation to item 2.4 for the reclassification of council lands, and in particular, that portion of Austin Butler Oval that lies adjacent to Peninsula Plaza. I'm speaking this evening in support of the reclassification process and the referral to the Department for a Gateway Determination, as this represents an important step in enabling the existing shopping centre to extend the current car park and rationalise the existing loading dock facilities so as to ensure that the centre continues to operate in a safe and efficient manner. As the Council is aware, Peninsula Plaza has operated successfully for over 30 years, with Woolworths as one of its major tenants. However, in recent years, the centre has experienced increasing vehicle, semi-trailer and pedestrian conflicts, both within the car park and on the entry to Blackwall Road. The reclassification of the adjoining portion of Austin Butler Oval will enable the parking, loading and access problems to be safely resolved. But more importantly, it is important to note that this reclassification has wider implications for the Woy Woy Town Centre, which is due to undergo a major review of its planning and management controls under Council's place plan process. I understand that Council has already received a draft economic assessment for Woy Woy, in addition to a draft traffic management assessment, as a prelude to the wider review of the town centre controls. Peninsula Plaza and its anchor tenant Woolworths are key components to the success of the Woy Woy Town Centre, and it's therefore imperative that the shopping centre function in the most efficient manner possible, especially in terms of traffic interaction onto Blackwall Road and how this impacts onto the wider centre network. The current internal constraints make the intersection of the car park entry and Blackwall Road highly conflicted. These conflicts impact on the operations of the centre and its customers and the wider precinct. Therefore, the reclassification of the adjoining land and ensuring its availability for car park and loading dock extensions is important to the wider commercial health of the town centre. This is extremely important in view of the increasing pressure to improve commercial outcomes for the Woy Woy Town Centre and encourage redevelopment and residential living within the CBD. This will form part of the aims of the upcoming Woy Woy Place Plan process, as Council seeks to improve development outcomes, facilitate better traffic management and encourage commercial efficiency. Without the ability to expand and rationalise the car park, Peninsula Plaza will continue to be a complicating factor in the way the town centre operates. Excuse me. It's important to note that the centre will continue to operate successfully, but needs the car park and loading dock improvements to ensure that those operations are compatible.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mr. Hart.
Please let people speak. Right, our next speaker is Mr Gary Jackson, speaking on item 2.6, which is the adoption of the Kibble Park Place Plan and the Kibble Park Concept Plan.
Good evening, thank you. I'm speaking as a newly elected member of the Council's Heritage Committee. I understand that this is not normal practice, but time constraints and only finding out about this agenda item on the weekend has caused me to take this course. The newly formed Heritage Committee was formed first met on the 16th of August, and we will not meet again until the 19th of October. So we haven't really had time to discuss this. At our meeting on the 16th, Glenn Cunnard made a presentation in relation to the plan. There was discussion about the overall plan, but most of the discussion related to the future of the library. From the minutes, there were mixed views amongst the committee, although most considered the building to be of heritage significance and should be retained. It was also noted that the building is listed with the Australian Institute of Architects. So there was little opportunity to discuss or investigate the history of the building. We'd like that opportunity. We believe the library is a very good example of brutalist architecture. I've reviewed the council heritage minutes for the last 3 years, and the library has not been listed for discussion or investigation during that time. I'm also aware that over the last 10 years or so, there's been a couple of consultants, in particular David Scobie, called in to do an evaluation of various items within the Gosford CBD, and the library was listed for inclusion in Council's heritage inventory. For some reason, that didn't eventuate. I've been in contact with the other members of the Heritage Committee, and we would like the opportunity to conduct a full review of the history and heritage significance of the library to ensure that we are not losing another building that should have been listed in the heritage inventory. We may be also able to make some other suggestions as to an alternative use for the building, such as a tourist information centre or a youth centre or an internet hub for business people. Does the building have heritage significance? We must look at a definition, and I'll quote one. Features belonging to the culture of a particular society, such as tradition, language, or buildings that were created in the past and still have historical importance. I believe the Gosford City Library has those qualities. A senior architect for urban design and heritage for Greater Sydney says that given the demolition of so many brutalist buildings across Sydney, their assessment and recognition requires the immediate attention, as it makes no sense to erase any more of these credible they basically doesn't want any more of those buildings erased. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker, back again to Kevin Brooks, speaking on item 2.8, Water and Sewer Performance Report. Kevin.
This report shows that throwing ever more ratepayers' money at a poorly managed and inefficient council does not lead to improved performance. Water rates have risen sharply over the past 2 years and are on track to be about 50% higher in nominal terms in 2025 than they were in 2021. Yet despite these massive rate hikes, we are presented this evening with a truly shocking water and sewer performance report. Water quality complaints are up more than 30%. Unplanned service interruptions up 18% and 43% worse even than the Mickey Mouse target set by this council. The average duration of these interruptions has also increased. 3 test results did not comply with the Australian drinking water standards with respect to chemicals. That's 3 more than last year. Water loss to leaks up 20%. At the same time, council is telling residents we should be saving water. A massive spike in the volume of sewage overflows in the final quarter, and a similar spike in the number of days that beaches and lagoons were not swimmable due to sewer discharges. The number of wastewater overflows reported to the environmental regulator remains significantly above target. The number of EPL protection licence non-compliance is joint highest level over the past 5 years, and water mains breaks up 13%. Now, in response, the director's summary states, and I quote, "We achieved some pleasing results in the 22-23 financial year." This is self-congratulatory spin and propaganda that bears no relation to the balance of results presented in the report. We should not forget the role in the financial crisis of inadequate reporting and assurances by management that operational matters were being managed well when in fact they were not. If performance reports are to drive improvement, then results must be honestly and objectively interpretive, with causes explained and solutions identified. Mr. Administrator, I urge you to reject this report and ask for a redraft with 2 additions. First, where performance has declined significantly or is below target, we need a proper explanation relating to cause. And I don't mean excuses. The director's reference to the weather reminds me of the UK train companies, who became a national laughing stock for always having weather-related excuses. Snow in winter, melting tracks, summer, leaves on the line in autumn. Weather does not explain the scale of deterioration over a full year. Second, this report needs a more specific action plan to address areas of poor performance. This should be reported quarterly, so progress can be tracked. We shouldn't have to wait 12 months and hope the weather saves the day. Council promised that rate hikes would deliver improvements, yet these shocking results show that services have deteriorated further from an already low base. Ratepayers deserve better. There needs to be accountability, action, and improvement.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And that now brings us to the close of the public forum for tonight. And so we'll formally close that. And of course, you're welcome to either disappear and listen to the council meeting via the webcast, or you're also equally welcome to stay behind and join me afterwards for a cup of tea or coffee and a biscuit. So we'll see you again very shortly. Thank you. Once again, we will acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, work and play, pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their continued connection to these lands and waterways. We also acknowledge our shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and our people. So I will now declare the council meeting, the ordinary council meeting of the Tuesday the 26th of September open. And just to remind people that it is being broadcast, so any comments that are made will be recorded and obviously can be used against you if necessary. First thing we'll do is we'll welcome everybody here tonight and all those that are watching at home. There may be one or two watching due to the content that's on the agenda tonight. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about the councillor return program. So at 6 o'clock on Wednesday the 18th of October, so slightly later next month or the middle of next month, Council is going to kick off its candidate information sessions for anyone interested in becoming a councillor. Now this first session will be held here at the Wyong Administration Building. Now we're very, very keen to see some good people applying themselves to govern this organisation when democracy, as some people see it, is returned the 14th of September next year. So what this is an opportunity to come along, and it's open to anybody, and it's there to try and understand about what it's like to actually be a councillor, what the role of the governing body is, outline some of the key responsibilities and the duties of a councillor and other things. Later next year, we'll be running another couple of sessions where we will be getting some ex-mayors, not from this particular area I might add, to talk about how you go about getting elected and the processes of putting together tickets and some of the techniques you might use and what the costs are and where you might spend your money to help you get elected. So experts will be helping facilitate those discussions, and we will have that commencing, as I said, in a couple of weeks' time. Participants will be able to ask extensive questions about the process and what to expect, and basically I would urge anybody who's remotely interested in becoming a councillor to come along, or to encourage friends or people you think could do a good job, colleagues or neighbours, and ask them to come along. And more information will be available on the official council channels in the coming weeks, timing and location, etc. The state government budgets came out, and I'll leave you guys to make a judgment as to whether the Central Coast did well out of it. But it is the first budget of the new government, and we are working very cooperatively with the state government on the delivery of their local election promises, and we continue to look forward to being able to do more of that for the benefit of the Central Coast community into the future. Right now, we've got some early stage community strategic plan consultation open, and we're inviting the community to share their feedback to help inform the next iteration of the Central Coast Community Strategic Plan, known as the CSP, and the Local Strategic Planning Statement. Now, these documents are of the highest level of strategic planning undertaken by a local council and are developed on behalf of the community, so it's pretty important that they represent a wide range of views. Now, council wants to hear about your experiences, values and visions for the Central Coast region, and the feedback will be prepared and collated before public exhibition and adopted upon the return of an elected body after September 24. So what we're doing now is collecting the information so that when a new council comes in, they're ready to be able to consider that document and hit the ground running, so to speak. We're also inviting the community to attend free Helping Learner Drivers Become Safer Drivers workshops run by Transport for New South Wales in partnership with the council. Now, these workshops are being held at Erina Library, Tuggerah Library and Carryong Library in October and November. And for more information on this or to book, you can head to the council's website or eventbrite.com.au. Just some updates on our some of the recent works that have been going on. The section of the Darren Smith Memorial Cycleway, which runs between Budgewoi and Norah Head, was recently upgraded. 220 metres of the path was upgraded, providing an improved shared pathway for the community. 2 segments of Hugh Road and Jillaby were treated to a pavement rehabilitation upgrade, and these works spanned over 2.1 kilometres in length from Dixon Road to Holloway Drive. This project was delivered utilising stockpile gravels and existing in situ pavement material, providing sustainability on Central Coast Council roads. And with the very warm weather we've had of late, great to see that over the weekend the 23-24 beach patrol season kicked off with an official raising of the flag ceremony at Terrigal Beach. Now, Council's lifeguards and surf lifesaving volunteers provide search and rescue services for our coastal beaches, as well as emergency medical care when required. And I would like to thank the staff and volunteers for all that they do and wish the community here a very safe summer season. It looks like it's going to be a fairly warm one. Now, the Kuri Knockout Tournament kicks off at the Central Coast Regional Sports and Recreation Complex in Tuggerah, with up to 150 teams expected to participate during the 4-day event. Now, this event is one of the largest annual Indigenous sporting events, and again, it's just fantastic that we're able to host that event here on the coast, because we get the families and we get the competitors coming from across the state. We expect some thousands of spectators to attend and to sort of boost our tourist economy by an estimated $6 million, providing a direct benefit to our region's small businesses. The Pelican Experience, we're sort of back on track with that, and Council has partnered with the Marine Wildlife Rescue Central Coast to deliver a family-friendly, educational, safe and eco-friendly pelican experience called Pelican Time with Marine Wildlife Rescue Central Coast. And this free talk takes place on weekends, public holidays and school holidays, and is located on the waterfront at the entrance until July 2024. And again, more information is available at Council's websites. So that sort of brings us up to date with the sort of things that have been happening. Then we'll move on to the sort of more substantive agenda items. So item 1.1, which is the disclosures of interest. So I have to again ask the staff if they've got any conflicts, and I don't believe again there are any conflicts on the papers tonight. So we will now agree to resolve the resolution that is shown on the screen. Item 1.2, which is confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. As has been pointed out eloquently tonight, I do note that there was a typographical error and recommendation for item 2.5 to the August 2023 meeting, the bulk reclassification of land operational to community and community to operational. The recommendation and subsequent resolution should have read Lot 9 DP 235385 rather than Lot 19 DP 235385. So with that correction to the minutes, I will now resolve to adopt the minutes from the August meeting with those amendments. Item 1.3, which is notice of intention to deal with matters in confidential session. We don't have any confidential items tonight, so we will confirm the resolution that is shown on the screen. I'm now going to move to an administrator's minute, which I've prepared after thinking long and hard about it in the last couple of weeks. And the administrator minute is titled Removal of Austin Butler Access from Current Bulk Reclassification of Land Process. Now, I won't go through the background. I think most of you are pretty familiar with that, but I will just read it briefly through the balance of it. So I am proposing to remove this site from the land reclassification planning proposal, which has been considered this evening, item 2.4. And as I resolved at the 22 August 23 council meeting, formal community feedback will be sought on whether Austin Butler access should be retained in council ownership or whether council should proceed with the sale of the land. Now, should the majority of the community elect for the land to be sold, I have committed that all proceeds of such a sale will be allocated within council's long-term financial plan to the greening of the local community, for example, via an extensive street planting street tree planting program, which aligns with Council's Greener Places strategy. To give a sort of a sense of the scale of the type of program that this could fund, the sale of the identified portion of Austin Butler access, because bear in mind it is not the whole part at all, could fund more than 8,500 trees across the peninsula region, including sourcing, planting and maintenance to maturity. It's initiatives like this which could achieve a significant advancement towards the objectives of Council's Greener Places strategy. I have received correspondence and have had many conversations with individuals and groups from the peninsula region who are greatly concerned about the heat island effects present in this region. Should the majority of the community express an interest through the consultation process in proceeding with the sale and the allocation of all funds to a greening program, such a program would go a long way in providing long-term progress in greening the local area and mitigating the impacts of climate change to the benefit of future generations. As one of the speakers actually noted tonight, is where we have to make a focus on the future of the impacts of climate change. It should be noted that the funding source from this program, should it proceed, would be in addition to any existing council programs, such as the street tree planting program, which is currently budgeted at $40,000 per annum for the entire Central Coast region. Now, the community engagement process is to be undertaken as soon as possible and in two parts: an independently conducted targeted representative survey and an open community survey via Council's community engagement website, yourvoiceourcoast.com. To ensure that the community are kept properly informed of the results of this community engagement, it is requested that a summary report be prepared outlining the outcomes of the community engagement process and report back to Council as soon as possible. Now, I'm making it very clear, the Council was approached by the Plaza and its major tenants for the sale. So it was not put onto an asset sales list for the purpose of sale. This is an opportunity, and it has been caught up, if you like, in a reclassification process, which is why I'm taking the reclassification process off the table at this point in time. And I want the community to have a discussion about whether or not the value of planting 8,500 trees is there. As I said, I'm just giving the community the option, because that is the consultation process. Please quiet. We received an offer, if you like, from a proponent. What I'm doing is I'm putting that offer to the community, saying, that's what I'm doing, because I've canned the reclassification process. I'm putting that offer to the community for them to consider and give me the advice back as to whether or not they, the community, think it's worthwhile having 8,500 trees planted into the future or retaining the existing. Because that money was only one source of money. As you can see, the council does not have very much money for the street tree planting program. I get hammered day after day. Our planning staff get hammered day after day through DAs about any tree that is knocked down in that peninsula area. Here is the opportunity for the community to have a discussion about it. It's what I would call true consultation. I've taken the invitation from the proponent, put it to the community to now talk about how they want that money spent, or indeed if they don't want it spent, and we keep it. So that is the decision which will now go out to the community for them to look at. So with that, I'm now going to move these recommendations that are on the screen, and you will note the first recommendation is to remove Austin Butler access from the current bulk reclassification process and from the planning proposal being considered. And then number 2 rescinds part of the resolution from the previous council meeting. And then we move to 3, where we seek the feedback on the following options, only 2 options: retain the site in council ownership or proceed with the sale, and then request the Chief Executive Officer to come back with a report. So that's the minute. With that, I'm going to move all of those recommendations and the amendments there and make those as a decision of council. I'm now going to move a procedural motion So given that I've been discussing item 2.4, I will now move a procedural motion to consider the item 2.4 now, and that procedural motion is now shown on the screen. And with that, I'm going to move that procedural motion and make that a recommendation of council. So we will now consider item 2.4, which is the request to prepare planning proposal reclassification of council land. I'm going to ask Andrew Roach, who's the acting Director of Environment and Planning, to make some comments about a number of these proposals.
Thank you, Mr Administrator. The report before you seeks a council resolution to progress the reclassification of council land. I note the Administrator's minute and the resolution just now to exclude the Austin Butler Reserve site from that process. By way of background, public land, not including road reserves, is classified as either operational land or community land. Community land is further categorised according to use and can only be used for the purpose for which it is categorised and in accordance with a plan of management that applies to the land. Operational land, on the other hand, is typically used for council business purposes and has a wider range of potential uses, including, for example, the ability to be sold, the ability to be leased on a long-term arrangement, for example, to a sporting association or registered club, or the potential to be developed for such things, including affordable housing in conjunction with a social housing provider. At the council meeting on the 22nd of August, council resolved to reclassify approximately 80 lots from operational land to community, and also at that meeting to commence a reclassification process for a small number of lots to be transferred from community land to operational land. This report seeks to progress the reclassification of council land and seeks a gateway determination from the New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment to commence the community consultation process. I note the comments from Ms Cooper in relation to consultation. I'll deal with those in a moment, including the role of the local planning panel in the reclassification process. It's important to note, though, on another matter raised by Ms Cooper in relation to rezoning of the lands, the report tonight relates to reclassification only. Any future rezoning of the lands would be required to go through its own completely separate process. I can run through some of the parcels of land now, and for the information of the Administrator and the community, I'll quickly run through them with a few brief details and background. At the end, I'll then comment on the next steps and where to from here in the reclassification process, should the Administrator agree to moving forward. The first slide shows lots within the Gosford CBD. There are 2 lots. 49 to 51 Man Street is a small strip of land adjacent to Henry Parry Drive. It was a portion of closed road reserve from the mid-1970s. This lot was inadvertently omitted from the recent reclassification process in support of the sale of the former Gosford Council Chambers site. The other site in the Gosford CBD is the Gosford Bowling Club site. This site is currently under lease to Central Coast Leagues Club, with subsequent arrangements between the Leagues Club and Gosford Bowling Club. A key component of the Gosford Stadium implementation plan is a precinct master plan for the area, including this site. The reclassification is consistent with previous resolutions of council, including from March 22, 2022, which endorsed works towards the wider master plan outcomes. Council is not proposing to sell the site, nor to change the current lease arrangements with the Central Coast Leagues Club. Next slide, please. The next 2 slides show sites that are currently associated with existing registered clubs or sporting associations. 48W Wallara Road on the left is a vacant grass parcel which is immediately south of the Wallara Bay Recreation Club. The land is essentially landlocked. It's only accessible via the club or from the water or from privately owned adjoining sites. It is currently licensed to and maintained by the Wallara Bay Recreation Club. 191 Wallara Road, Canwell, is a community hall and associated car parking. Wyong Leagues Club operate under licence in the lower area of this building and use a portion of the building for storage. The upper levels are used for other community uses. On slide 3, on the left is 2 to 4 Park Road, the entrance. This is the entrance bowling club. Locals will know it as the Greens. It is currently leased to Mingara Recreation Club. The reclassification includes the club building and the bowling greens only, and not the adjoining Taylor Park playing fields. Most locals will know that the building was significantly damaged by fire in 2020, and the majority of the buildings have been demolished for safety reasons. Last year, the current lessee, Mingara Recreation Club, obtained a development consent for the wholesale redevelopment of the club building. The reclassification of this site will permit for a potential long-term commercial lease or sale to facilitate the rebuilding of the facility that is unlikely to be financially viable in any other way. The lot on the right is 20 Summerland Road, Summerland Point. It's currently the Summerland Point Sporties Club, part of the Dawson YE RSL group. The reclassification of this site could facilitate a long-term lease to the club, allowing investment of income in other recreation facilities and facilitating long-term investment in the club by a long-term tenant. The next slide, please. Slide 4, this is 75 Bungaree Road, Norah Head. 2 parcels which currently contain the Norah Head Community Hall. The hall itself is at the end of its useful life and is beyond repair, requiring demolition. The state of the building does not currently allow it to be occupied due to safety reasons. Council is currently in the process of developing a new community centre on an adjoining site linked to the sporting fields. The modern new facility will be more appropriate to meet the needs of the community of Norah Head, and the building of that facility could be partially funded by a lease or sale of 75 Bungaree Road. Next slide, please. These 2 adjoining sites are 13 and 15 Urella Road, Toukley. The 2 lots have previously been considered at the ordinary meeting of council on the 22nd of August this year for a potential affordable housing project. The reclassification of the lots is required if council is to progress affordable housing schemes to meet council objectives under the adopted affordable and alternative housing strategy. Slide 6, next one. These 2 sites, including 6W Camira Road, Lake Munmora, long identified to be dedicated as a public road to facilitate housing development in accordance with a master plan for the locality, the rezoning which has recently been gazetted. The site at Parawina Road is a narrow parcel which was originally intended to provide a buffer along the road. The reclassification would assist in facilitating development of the site to the east, long identified as containing potential future employment and housing needs. And the final slide, which I don't really think we need to speak to, given that this site has already been excluded from the process in the administrator's minute, which we spoke about a short time ago. Next slide, please. Although this is very difficult to read, this is the current process for reclassification of lands and planning proposals. Move on to the next one, is probably the most important. So the next steps would be the consideration of the gateway determination by New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment. That is, of course, if the administrator agrees to progress it to that stage. And then after that, the community consultation and engagement process, which is set out in this slide. That community consultation process involves notification and exhibition, consultation with government agencies and public hearings. I'd just like to quickly comment on the couple of matters raised by Ms Cooper. The one is in relation to community consultation and engagement. In fact, that it's an unusual arrangement where you have to get through the gateway process before the formal arrangement of consultation is set out. This other comment was in relation to the local planning panel and its role. This is perhaps a quirk of the planning system, because although consultation with the community and all government agencies occurs after the gateway process, consultation with the local planning panel is the one step that occurs before the matter is considered for gateway determination. The other important point here is that the local planning panel does not have any substantive decision-making role in planning proposals. The Environmental Planning and Assessment Act sets out very clearly that the role of the local planning panel is to provide advice only.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. I think that was a very good explanation, and I hope by going through the examples, leaving Austin Butler aside, one can see that it makes absolute sense to be doing those other particular parcels, because they're either landlocked, the sites we want to free up for affordable housing, but more particularly in those 2 sites we're looking, well, I'm hoping it'll look more for victims of domestic or family violence, sites for people who have been affected by those impact, places for them to be able to go to down the track. So all of that to rebuild the bowling green. These things, they have to go to the operational, to give a longer term lease, it has to be operational because people can't raise the funds, businesses can't raise the funds to borrow against a short-term lease. So these are some of the practicalities of actually having to have it operational. You can see none of that is actually going out into the big wide world. It's actually taking plots of land which are adjoining things or alongside, already covered by existing leases or licenses, where there needs to be investment, and by freeing them up, it allows that investment, which is for the benefit of the community, to take place. So when we look at the recommendations to look at, you will notice there needs to be, and they're in red there, we need to make sure that in passing those items to go forward into the planning proposal and through to Gateway, that we are not putting in Austin Butler. So what you're seeing up there in red is effectively just taking out Austin Butler and putting in place part one of my earlier minute. So with those points, I'm now going to move those recommendations and make those as a decision of council. So we now move back to, having brought that one forward, we'll go back to item 2.1, which is the monthly finance report. And I'm going to ask the Chief Executive, who I'm sure will cover off the investment report at the same time.
I certainly will. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Just in response to Mr. Brooks and the ratio pieces, is that the July and the August monthly reports are truncated reports, not in the same form as our normal financial reports, as the majority of the same team that prepare the monthly financial reports are also the team that prepare the annual financial statements and have been focused significantly on that piece. This council has an extended history of not being on time with its annual financial statements, and we want to make sure that we deliver them on time and get them audited by the statutory requirement of the end of November, and they're on the agenda later tonight. So in terms of these monthly reports, at this stage, on a consolidated basis, we're seeing a small surplus and an improvement in our budget of about $7.5 million. At this stage, it's too early to see clear trends, and much of the positive change may just be timing at this stage. But as we become more stable and we can examine the funds and how we're operating, so I want to talk about the funds specifically. Water and sewer is now trading very close to even, with $128,000 surplus for the first 2 months of the year, a little below our budget of $467,000. But, you know, a very, very close to surplus on a very large turnover part of the business. The waste fund is tracking with a small deficit due to the waste fee having no increase for the last 2 years. But this is able to be absorbed by accumulated surpluses within the waste fund. The general fund, including with drainage and waste, is showing an improved performance over budget of about $7.5 million. As the water and sewer funds continue to run close to break even, in accordance with the IPART determination, a continuing closer focus on general fund will be needed. Council continues to have positive working capital. Capital Works program is slightly ahead of budget, following on from last year when Council delivered its capital program within 1.5% of budget. Council has $772 million in investments with approved depository institutions, and Council is in a sound and stable position going forward. That was my investments, $772 million and in approved depository.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Yes, look, I would also, I think, just make a comment about the monthly financial reports and the first 2 months reporting. I have had a conversation, as you might imagine, with the staff about it, and I have to accept that the priority for us at this point in time is to make sure that we do get those financial year-end figures audited by Audit New South Wales to the Office of Local Government by November. And given where we came from, and with the somewhat limitations of numbers of staff that are skilled in this area, it was a choice of simply, do we produce a second full set of financials for the month of July, for the month of August, or do we in actual fact let and get the end year results delivered on time? So I'm quite happy to accept that that was the rationale. I am used to, we would report after the leaving July alone. Most private companies, and certainly the ones I've worked for, do not bother with reporting on July because quite clearly the crossover between year end and accurately trying to do a set of July accounts doesn't quite work. And by the time you get to August, then you're back on track. In this case, the judgment of the Chief Executive and the CFO was that they wanted to prioritise, and I support that strongly because we need to get back onto a good set of terms with Audit New South Wales and the Office of Local Government by being on time. So it is a monumental effort because we still got, during the audit process last year, we got adjustments that need to be taken into consideration and worked through. So I think the Chief Executive will probably mention a couple of those when it comes to talking about the financial results, which is the next item on the agenda. So I will move both those items together, 2.1 and 2.2, the investment report. Also, the other thing to note is we are now consistently keeping sufficient working capital or unrestricted cash to cover a good couple of months of trading, if you like. So if something adverse comes along, we are able to cover that off, and then we'll obviously need to rebuild that back up again. But that's something that, of course, the previous administration fell well short of. They did not keep sufficient working capital about to meet, to repay their debts as they fell due. So I will move item 2.1 and 2.2, the recommendations that are shown on the screen for those two, and make those as a decision of council. We'll now move to the financial reports for the Central Coast Council for the financial year of 22-23. And I have to say it's a great effort by the team to actually get them up in this time. And I just hope that they go through audit in the next month. So, Mr. Farmer, you might like to comment on the results.
Tonight, we present the draft unaudited financial statements to be endorsed by council to be presented for audit. If we go to the next slide, thanks. In terms of the unaudited figures, they show a second successive surplus, which is the blue lines, and the green line, the end green column is the current year's budget. So if that goes back to 2018, 19, 19, 20, 2021, 20, and then you start to get into positives in 21, 22 and 22, 23. You can see that we're running a second consecutive surplus after two very large loss-making years. And in fact, the two accumulated surpluses that we've run the last 2 years equals almost exactly the accumulated deficit in 2021, the smaller of those negative surpluses. So we're still behind by the $90-odd million that was the deficit in 1920. When we look at last year's results, they show a surplus, that's next slide, of $28.5 million, which is better than budget by $21.4 million. But that was bolstered by, if we can go to the next slide, thanks, bolstered by an unexpected and unbudgeted early repayment of this year's Commonwealth FAGS grant. If we remove this, the result comes in at about $10 million. So that's the next slide, please. Sorry, no, we can go back, sorry. The result comes in about $10 million and is very close to budget. There are some other ins and outs which move the underlying surplus closer to about $20 million, which is about our ongoing target. So if we move to the next slide. When we go to cash, we look at the all-important restricted cash figure, which is the grey bar in these graphs. And you can see in 1920 and 2021, we had negative working capital, which essentially meant that we were trading insolvent. And you can see in 2021 and 2022, we now have positive working capital, and we're now in a position where we have the funds to be able to pay our bills and have a little bit of a buffer in case things don't work out as expected. Current unrestricted cash is $95 million. And we can see the external restrictions and the internal restrictions. In that internal restrictions, as at June, the 30th of June, there's about $44 million in early repayment reserve, which I'll talk about a little bit earlier, but $95 million of unrestricted cash. In terms of debt, we can see a gradual reduction over the last 2 years, and the important column is the red one in the last 3 graphs, which is the emergency loans that needed to be taken out to bolster liquidity in 2021. That was $150 million in emergency loans. These are gradually being paid down, and the largest of the two, originally $100 million, now in the 80s, resets in December. Council has established an early repayment reserve, which had $43 million in it at 30th of June, and at the end of this month, we will hold $55 million in that fund. We plan to retire most, if not all, of this loan in December. That's important for 2 reasons. One, it removes that emergency debt off our books and provides free cash flow on other things, but also that the interest rate on that debt will dramatically increase because it was taken out at a period of extremely low interest rates. And if we just let that debt roll over, we'll find a significant increase in our interest costs in that space. In terms of the core financial ratios, and I don't expect you to be able to see them, but they're in the business papers, specified by the Office of Local Government, Council meets 5 of these measures. And some of these ratios are the ratios that Mr. Brooks referred to. We meet 5 of those ratios, and the one that is not met is rates and charges outstanding, and it's a function of this council's billing cycle, water billing cycle, and the charges being levied under the Water Management Act as opposed to rates. Excluding the water and sewer charges, we meet the benchmark, and so therefore we would meet all the benchmarks under that, under the OLG requirements. That's comparatively unusual for local governments, and that's a good result. The rates and charges outstanding because of the water and sewer billing issues, it's not a cause for concern at all. It's merely a timing of how we, or when we have raised our water and sewer charges. We go to the next slide. In terms of our core asset management ratios, Council doesn't currently meet the top 3. However, a return to financial sustainability has allowed increased focus on these issues, and all of these ratios have improved over the past 12 months. In summary, Council's in a sound and stable financial position. It still has to deal with debt incurred during the financial crisis, and it also has to deal with a range of other financial challenges consistent with other local governments. For example, the rate cap for the past 2 years has been 1% and 3.8% respectively, which is significantly lower than inflation, building construction costs, or the local government award. And so therefore we have to manage with significant constraints, but we're in a position that's not dissimilar to most other local governments, moving from a position that was, possibly the worst, one of the worst in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. I think that tells the picture pretty clearly, doesn't it? The council has come an extremely long way. And one of the comments I want to make is that a lot of people expect you go from 0 to 100 in no time at all. It does take time to get this organisation completely back on its feet. We're paying off debt at a very rapid rate, and at the same time, managing cost increases beyond which are actually outside our control, and we're still delivering very close to the required benchmarks. And as the CEO mentioned, that one measure which, I'm not happy about, but the fact is water and sewer under the Water Management Act is treated differently to every other council which is as a water utility, whereas we're a water management authority. So that simple distinction means that, and does have quite an impact on our financials one way or another. And that is a separate issue we are actually talking and taking up with the state government, which was, as you might recall, one of the recommendations from the Commissioner's report into the demise of the Central Coast Council. The other thing I do want to highlight is the CEO mentioned the FAG grants. They are what's called the Financial Assistance Grants. They come from the Commonwealth, and they are money that goes into our operating side of the business. Most of the money we get from state and federal governments is capital, which obviously gets spent on capital. But the operating money does come in and it gets put into our income and therefore shows as income. And if we expense against it, then we expense against it. Our problem comes when the FAG grants is that when the Commonwealth decides they're going to do something different, which is what they did this year. They decided to actually bring next year's into this last financial year. So the year we're in now, the money, I think it's about 18 million, was it, or thereabouts, roughly, that we budget to be in the year we're in now, actually got brought in a couple of days before the close-off of the last financial year we're just reporting on. So that's why the Chief Executive has said that the 28 million, which is what the numbers show from an accounting point of view correctly, but we just got all that income just given to us to be spent this year in a year we hadn't budgeted for. So therefore, it expanded our bottom line, and the true bottom line was pretty much in line with the original budget that the council set earlier in the time. It therefore will give us a problem this year, which will need to be managed closely, because we now have to spend that money this year, so our costs will go up. And I guess what we want, and I've already made this case to the federal government, if they're going to do this, it's okay, but they've got to be consistent year on year, giving us the money a year ahead of when we're actually going to spend it. So we always got the right matching expenditure and money in the year we operate in. But there's no guarantees of that, but we have asked the question. The other thing that did give us quite a hit for last year, which wasn't anticipated early on, is that we had a revaluation of our assets, and we found a couple of extra assets, and the depreciation had to be taken up in the expenditure line. So that's where we actually had some increased problems there, or increased issues, which again reduced our bottom line. But having left that aside, they were beyond our control. The result, I think, is first class, and I have to say thank you to the staff. They've done a great job in keeping things going and improving things, and it's on track, as you heard from the CEO, to repay $100 million in December this year. And given that I drew that down in December 2019, 2020, wasn't it? Yeah, 2020, forget it. 2020, drew that down, and that'll be 3 years, we will have repaid $100 million. I just want you to think about that, the effort that's had to go into actually to be able to do that. And as the CEO mentioned, the rate that we managed to achieve that at was exceptionally low. I'll couch it those terms. And what we would, if we had to refinance that, and hopefully we won't have to, but if we did, then of course it would be a substantially higher rate, and probably in the orders of 5-odd%. So with that, I'm going to now move a series of recommendations which will be rolled through on the screen. But the recommendations allow these draft results, which incidentally have been through the audit committee, and the audit committee has signed off on them. So they've gone through that process. They now go through to the Audit New South Wales, and over the next month, hopefully working with our team, we will get a clean audit and we will deliver in November, as promised. No pressure, Ms. Rakamallara. All right, with that, we'll move those recommendations that are shown on the screen and make those as a decision of council. We'll now move to item 2.5, which is the Gosford Regional Library project status update. I think, Ms. Smith, you're going to talk a little bit about this.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Finally, I might add, finally.
Finally. The much-awaited Gosford Regional Library has been designed over 4 spacious levels with a variety of modern spaces to engage and connect all ages of the community. The new library will include business, creative and function areas with spaces to connect, to learn and to do business with council, such as a space for kids to find a love of literacy through interaction and play, a large flexible function space for larger audiences, breakout spaces on every level for private and collaborative learning, or just to relax and take in the views of the city and beyond. A smart work hub which contains dedicated meeting rooms, a recording studio and exhibition space. Current date of practical completion of construction is the 20th of December 2024. The library is currently planned to open in February 2025. Project expenditure to date is just over $3 million as at 31st of August 2023, against a total budget of $32.7 million. North has commenced pre-construction tasks and plans to mobilise and start demolition shortly. The next progress report will be brought to Council at the December meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Look, it's great to just see this project finally getting underway. It's been, I think, nearly 20 years or something. I think, if memory serves me well, 30 is it? 30 years in the making. So it's actually, I guess, underway. Now, the facility is going to be sensational. It's a multi-use facility. Will cover a whole wide range of uses. Going with the Kibble Park redevelopment plan and so on, which is also exciting. Those projects are going to help transform that centre of Gosford, and I'm kind of looking forward. It'll be well after my time, of course, but I still will look forward to coming back to actually see the fruits of that coming into play. Just one small comment I would add. I note you say quarterly reporting, but since it's going to be a major project, you will be reporting monthly on it, I'm sad to say. So, Kevin, it will be reported monthly on that particular one, because I've asked for major capital projects such as this to be reported in the monthly report under the capital side with how the project's going against budget and with a estimated cost at the end. So we will be putting that in place. I hope that will keep everybody informed. And as I said, I think this is a fantastic project, and I'm very happy to move ahead with it. It does, at this stage, start the process so that the council can plan things of the other council building, which is the current library, in the park itself. We need to be able to plan for that eventually, perhaps going. And at this point in time, just remember that's not going to occur till opening of something 25, I think we're now talking about. So in 2025, when it's open. So there's plenty of time to still be considering what will happen there and what the final outlook for what the Kibble Park will look like. But we'll talk a little bit more about that, and I'm sure Ms. Smith will in the next paper. But for this paper, I'm happy to move this one forward and agree to those recommendations that are shown on the screen. We'll move now item 2.6, which is adoption of the Kibble Park Place Plan and the concept plan. Smith, got a pretty picture there somewhere?
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I think we're just bringing the slides up now. If we can go to the first slide, that would be great.
There
Thank you. So Kibble Park is a well-established public space located in the heart of the Gosford CBD. The park was named after James Kibble, who passed away in 1944, an important local leader, businessman and philanthropist who helped spur economic and civic activity in the area. The park, as it is known today, was first opened in 1980 and has served as a central gathering place for community events, recreational activities and relaxation since. Improvements have been made to Kibble Park in the years following its opening, including a major upgrade in 2013. The Place Plan provides a roadmap for achieving the community's vision through management, activation and practical design improvements. It sets the vision and direction for Kibble Park and provides a design brief for the concept plan structured around 5 key principles: welcoming and inclusive, green and relaxing, connected and flowing, sharing and celebrating, gathering and fun. The concept plan refines the vision to a conceptual level, illustrating the main design ideas and principles and proposing specific improvements to enhance the park's functionality. The design principles include green space, public realm, accessibility, cultural heritage, safety and operations. Significant consultation was undertaken both through the development of the place and concept plans and additionally through the Safer Cities Her Way project. All consultation reinforced the need to address the current configuration of Kibble Park and the surrounding laneways leading to the park to not only improve the perceptions of safety, but also to increase the number of people actively using the park and coming into the heart of the city to use modern amenities to meet their needs. Both the place plan and concept plans propose the removal of the existing library, which will increase public green space and provide spaces for events and activities where it's needed. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you. Very seldom does an opportunity arise to increase green space in a CBD. If retained, it should be noted that the existing building would need significant funding to repurpose and is not financially viable given the other options available, including the development of the Gosford Regional Library, which will provide 4,000 square metres of community space. In the current location, underneath the existing library, public amenities are in a poor location, need significant upgrades and are unsafe. There have been significant concerns raised about public safety and passive surveillance in regard to the existing library building. Repurposing it would not fix that key problem. This feedback was particularly prevalent through the Safer Cities Her Way discussions. It is acknowledged that it is important to recognise and celebrate the heritage and culture of the existing building, which has been well considered in the plans and can be incorporated further into the Gosford Regional Library development or throughout Kibble Park. Public safety and related perceptions have been big in all consultation. The proposed designs greatly improve physical functionality and ability to activate the area, which are key positives to improve public safety. The current plans will improve access to public spaces. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Currently, adequate budget exists within the adopted 23-24 operational budget to undertake any immediate work related to Kibble Park Place Plan and Concept Plan. Council collects development contributions for the revitalisation of open spaces within the Gosford CBD, including Kibble Park, and these funds are adequate to redevelop the park as outlined within the Place Plan and Concept Plans. The works will be undertaken in a staged manner to ensure minimum disruption and costs are spread across financial years. Budget for the demolition of the old Gosford Library will be included in the 24-25 operational budget when all associated costs have been determined. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Ms Smith. I was just actually confirming a number with the Acting Director of Planning and Environment. Look, there's no question Ms Smith is right when she says we need every bit of green space we can. I was just in the CBD. We have approximately potentially another 20-odd thousand dwellings, units going up in the CBD. We need to make sure we've got as much green space which we can. Because we've also got, of course, and thank you to the new Labor government, they have given us the $8.5 million, not to us yet, but it's budgeted to come to us, to be able to be spent at looking how we can progress with the waterfront. So when you look at the waterfront coming in, you look at the TAFE moving down from the hill, and the state investing in a new vertical TAFE and associated other things there, the freeing up of the current TAFE site for other development up there, the development potential which is set by the state government as the sixth city, or one of the 6 cities, part of the overall planning for Sydney, Greater Sydney. When you look at all of that, to me, it makes sense to maximise that green space at Kibble Park. That's why I'm comfortable that the staff recommendation of moving forward with, at this point in time, planning for the knockdown of that building, culturally recognising what it has, its contribution, then I'm comfortable to support that at this point in time. So I'm happy to support the recommendations as they are there. That green plan that you saw, that's sort of kind of going back out with the community to be refined. I mean, the CEO was talking about a couple of things there that he might want to see going into it. So it will be refined. It's going to be an iterative process as it moves forward. and hopefully, obviously, the community will have a strong involvement in going through what happens there, because that is going to be the principal showpiece, if you like, for all this, if you like, the gathering of people in Gosford to meet, whether it's lunchtime, evenings, and all the rest. People need to feel safe. They need to feel all the other things that the actual research work that's gone into it demonstrates. So the plan tries to cover all of that. And at this stage, it does mean that to get an events area in there, to be able to have outdoor events and so on, the current library building would need to go, and is replaced by a building that is, in terms of total size and capability, is infinitely bigger than the previous one. So with that, I'm going to move those recommendations for that paper as they are shown on the screen and make those as a decision of council. And now we move to a number of papers from Mr. Loader, I think, on water and sewer. And the first one is item 2.7, which is the water and sewer delivery plan for 22 to 26 and the progress report.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. In the 2022 water and sewer pricing determination, IPART required council to publish a plan outlining how we were going to go about implementing that determination. The plan was adopted as Central Coast Council's Water and Sewer Delivery Plan 2022-2026, or commonly known as the Delivery Plan. The Delivery Plan focuses on improving performance, accountability and transparency to the community on Council's water and sewer service. An important part of that accountability and transparency is meeting our reporting commitments to the community, which includes a biannual Delivery Plan progress report, which is what this report is. This progress report covers the period January to June 2023. So this report highlights some important achievements across the three focus areas in the delivery plan. The first of those focus areas is around accountability. One of the first delivery plan progress report was published by Council in March 2023. At the same time, we published our annual performance report to the community, which looked backwards at the last 5 years of performance data. A list of publicly reportable performance measures has now been defined by our community through our community engagement activities, and these will form the basis of future performance and the basis of our future reporting as well. In terms of community engagement, one of the other focus areas, Council's first water and sewer customer charter was developed with our community. The charter, complemented by a customer complaints management framework, was on exhibition for public comment until 23rd of August 2023 and is being considered for adoption by Council tonight. The latest round of community engagement, improving your water and sewer services, resulted in the community determining a set of values for water and sewer services and providing feedback on the importance of water and sewer performance metrics. Engagement with our community is embedded in all of our decision making. We make sure we place the customer at the centre of everything that Council does in providing water and sewer services, and that we act in the best interests of the whole community. The third focus area is asset management. Condition assessments and maintenance of our network continues to ensure that we provide a reliable water and sewer service for our customers. A capital approval and review committee has been established to conduct monthly reviews of water and sewer projects. This has resulted in over 100% delivery of our capital works program in 2022-23. Tender has also been issued for Batto Bay Sewage Treatment Plant upgrades, which is a long-awaited improvement initiative for that site. And a critical mains assessment tender has also been issued with works underway. Our next delivery plan progress report will be presented to Council in March 2024. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Do you want me to keep going with the others, or you want to? How do you want to?
No, well, actually, that's a good point, Mr. Loader. Given probably those three, because a lot of the comments are going to be generic for them, aren't they? So do you want to go through the first items through 2.7, 2.8, and 2.9, and then I think 2.10 we'll treat differently because that's engagement.
Sure.
Do you have that?
Okay, so as mentioned, Council's water and sewer commitments to the community include an annual performance report. For this reporting cycle, the performance report covers the 2022-23 financial year and coincides with the end of year one of Council's 4-year IPART pricing determination. The first performance report included performance data from the previous 5 years based on IPART and council-defined metrics. This report includes customer-defined metrics in addition to those IPART metrics developed through an extensive community engagement program. We're currently undertaking system upgrades which will see the information contained in the performance report available on Council's website. Where possible, this information will be live data, providing our customers with a real-time snapshot of our performance, reinforcing our commitment to accountability and transparency. The performance report provides an update against key water and sewer service metrics, with the results highlighting the following: an increase in unplanned outages due to 5 significant water main breaks. These occurred in the months of March, May and June and represented over a third of our total outages for these months. Investment in water main renewals is increasing in 23-24 to target poor performing assets and reduce the frequency and severity of unplanned outages. We're also increasing our preventive maintenance programs to target isolation valves, which will minimise the number of properties affected by main breaks and reduce the time taken to repair those breaks when they occur. The number of water quality complaints also increased. This has been heavily influenced by discoloured water complaints, particularly in January and February 2023. This is primarily caused by reductions in our flushing programs during the financial crisis and delays in delivering our water main renewal program. Improvements underway include optimisation of water mains flushing and cleaning programs, increased renewals of water mains, and an ongoing program of removing dead ends to increase the circulation of water through the network. Importantly, the water quality issues were all aesthetic issues. There were no breaches of drinking water guidelines in relation to health-based targets. 3 water samples that were non-compliant with the drinking water guidelines in relation to chemistry were all investigated and determined to be caused by damage to the sampling taps. These have been replaced and no further issues have been experienced. This is explained in the performance report, as is the explanation for the real water losses mentioned earlier by the speaker. There was a reduction in the number of sewer breaks and chokes, which is a result of increased investment in our sewer assets, and we experienced improved customer responsiveness, particularly in relation to urgent requests. Overall, we have begun the process of increasing our maintenance and improving our assets, and we have advanced plans and actions in place to address those areas where the level of performance is not meeting our targets. We recognise that performance improvement requires sustained investment in our assets, and it is going to take some time to see the results of this investment. We expect these metrics to improve over the course of the current pricing determination. I'll move on to the next item, which is the Customer Charter and Complaints Management Framework, which is item 2.9. So the Customer Charter is complemented by the Customer Complaints Management Framework. These documents are related and focus on placing the customer at the centre of everything the Council does in providing water and sewer services and achieving better outcomes for the community. The Customer Charter has been developed through Council's targeted engagement with the community, improving your water and sewer services. At the meeting of 25th of July 2023, Council endorsed the draft Customer Charter for public exhibition for 28 days. The documents are exhibited from 26th July to 23rd of August, with 6 submissions received. Issues raised in those submissions included a need for local representation in developing the Charter, lack of footpaths and public safety, inclusion of the Administrator's message, bushfire burn-offs, council assets post-merger and sharing of information, and flood risk management. All of these submissions have been responded to, but there were no material changes to the Customer Charter as a result. The Customer Charter, if adopted, will be placed and made available on Council's website. And that will do for me for now. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Loader. I just want to make just only a couple of comments because a lot of it's noting, and you've got the charter coming through at the end, which I think has been, the process has been good in getting to that position. But again, a couple of comments that were made by Mr. Brooks earlier on. I just need to remind everybody that we can't go from 0 to 100 in a few months or even a year. And bear in mind that IPART actually gave the funding over a 4-year period. And also bear in mind that IPART removed $120 million over a 3-year period, which should have been spent on keeping these assets going. So what Mr. Loader is having to do now, in conjunction with the extra fees that came from the charges from your water and sewer, is now going back to spend that money on those assets to try and improve the reliability, if you like, and the quality of the water and so on. So it is a slowish process. You can't go and have it fixed overnight. It's just like we can't pay the debt off overnight. It takes time to do it and build it up. But I think now getting the information out there, having worked with the community about what they want to see, now we're putting that down and reporting against it, the organisation will get better and better. And bear in mind, again, you will have your monthly reporting going on, which will show the income and expenditure, and it will also show the capital projects, and of course there's a lot of capital projects in this water and sewer area, of how they're going in managing those projects with the actual costs against the budgeted costs, and they will be reported on a monthly basis. So things are improving. I'm very comfortable that they are. No one's going to pretend we're perfect at the moment. I know you have a different view, Mr. Brooks, but I don't share your view. So with that, I'm going to move those items from 2.7, the recommendations, and 2.8 and 2.9, and we'll move through those and make those as a decision of council. And we'll ask Mr. Loader to now look at item 2.10, which is the education strategy going out for consultation.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. The draft community engagement education strategy guides how council will undertake our engagement and education with the community. This has also been developed through the Water and Sewer Targeted Community Engagement Program, Improving Your Water and Sewer Services. As part of the 2022 IPART Determination for Water and Sewer, we committed to improving our performance and our accountability to our customers. This draft strategy helps us meet this commitment. The strategy will be regularly reviewed and adapted to meet changes in how we operate. The draft strategy focuses on enhancing our engagement with customers and the community and our promise to listen to our customers. It outlines council's commitments incorporating an action plan for engaging with our community and having an education focus. Council worked with the community to develop this draft strategy with deep dive focus groups used to provide initial feedback. The participants in these groups had previously worked with council earlier in the year on the development of our customer charter. The draft strategy outlines the engagement principles that govern engagement and consultation with our community and the typical engagement process you would expect to see at council. It incorporates a community engagement action plan, including activities relating to the Water and Sewer Master Plan, the water conservation and water efficiency initiatives that are under our water security plan, service delivery and future pricing proposals, as well as establishing a customer advisory group. The draft strategy also incorporates education for our community to develop a water smart community. This is built around 4 focus areas: building community knowledge through engagement, education and transparency, developing young people to be water smart, future focused and innovative, collaborating with First Nations peoples to improve watershed knowledge, and engaging and educating businesses and high water usage non-residential customers so they can be water wise and reduce their impacts on the environment. If endorsed for exhibition, this will be placed on Council's website for 28 days. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Loader. Again, another foundation document, if you like, setting in place how things are going to be operated through in water and sewer into the future. And I look forward to the comments coming in on this, and hopefully you'll get a few. I'm sure there'll be at least one. And with that, get that out for exhibition, and then it'll come back with some modifications or changes, and then we will hopefully be able to adopt it, and it'll be underway. So with that, I'll just move those recommendations that are shown for item 2.10 on the screen and make those a decision of council. Item 2.11, amendments to waste guidance for development. And I think Mr. Bolgoff is going to, down this end, is going to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. This report seeks to put on public exhibition Chapter 2.14 of the Development Control Plan, which is associated with site waste management, and also the DA guidelines for resource and waste management. The DCP gives effect to the guidelines, which identify what needs to be submitted with a DA to manage waste on a site, from site preparation, construction, and finally, when it's occupied. The intention of these changes is to drive safety, protect the amenity, deliver efficiencies, and increase reuse and recycling as part of any development. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, I think not before time, in a sense, with the way the community expectations are, trying to manage some of these developments and how waste and so on is handled, it's good to be able to get, a very robust guidance, if you like, for developers as to what they're going to have to provide, how they're going to provide it, and so on. So very timely, I think, to be getting out there. As we're fully aware, the new government at the state level is very keen on a lot more housing and development here. So we want to make sure that it's as sustainable as possible. So very pleased to see that coming out. And again, document going out for consultation. So again, feel free to make your comments, and hopefully that'll come back and we can implement that as well. So with that, I'll move the resolutions that are shown on the screen for item 2.11. Item 2.12, which is our submission on the New South Wales Arts, Culture and Creative Industries Policy. Ms Smith, I think you're going to say a few words to that.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. This reports Council's response to the New South Wales Government's recently released discussion paper, A New Look at Culture, which is part of the review process of the review of the New South Wales Arts, Culture and Creative Industries Policy. The discussion paper seeks to understand what is working in the arts, cultural and creative sectors and what's not working, and what ideas may help stimulate growth in the sectors. Due to the limited time submissions were open, a report to Council to formally endorse a submission was not possible. Submissions were open to anyone within the creative arts sector and wasn't limited to local government. Council's response highlighted the growth and diversity in the population and asserts that the region is acknowledged as one of 5 New South Wales urban growth centres. Goes on to add that Central Coast does not have a state-funded cultural facility or specific state-based arts and cultural strategy, nor a dedicated regional arts body. While we have a solid foundation, it is crucial to address the challenges that our artists and creative industries face in terms of sustainable support. Council believes a strategic approach needs to focus on the following key objectives: sustained investment, allocate dedicated funding to support the Central Coast's rapidly emerging arts sector, ensuring that artists and projects receive the resources they need to grow and thrive. Retaining local talent, implement initiatives to encourage artists to remain in the region, such as providing incentives and support for projects that are developed and presented locally. Promotion and advocacy, raise awareness about the Central Coast's creative potential through effective promotion and advocacy, highlighting the distinctive contributions it can make to the broader cultural landscape, including the establishment of a regional arts development organisation for the Central Coast and broader region. Collaborative partnerships, foster collaborations between local artists, cultural institutions and businesses to create a network that nurtures creativity and strengthens the ties between the arts and the local community. Council has requested the Central Coast be identified as a pilot region for the strategic implementation of the Arts, Culture and Creative Industries Policy. By working together collaboratively, some of the outcomes that could be achieved include developing a not-for-profit managed multi-art form hub that could provide space for creative development across art form sharing and collaboration, developing a not-for-profit managed rolling fund supported by both Council and the state government with matching investment from the private sector that could financially support artistic growth and expression, increased investment in dedicated tertiary pathways for performing visual arts and creative industries on the Central Coast, direct investment in young people and the arts with stronger links to education through artists in schools and education offices, establishing a regional arts development organisation or other effective networking and professional support mechanism to link local artists with the tiers of government, providing investment in our ageing existing cultural facilities to ensure they remain fit for purpose into the future, invest in our rapidly emerging First Nations arts and cultural scene to increase opportunities for First Nations employment, stimulate our tourism sector and celebrate our unique local cultural heritage. Support Council in financially contributing towards an internationally recognised, broad art form-based and outward-looking Festival of the Arts hero event on the Central Coast. Thank you, Mr Administrator.
Thank you, Ms Smith. Yeah, it's a pretty ambitious list of things that we would like, but it's the old story. If you don't ask, you don't get. So we must definitely ask for things. And I think the one common point, that you made the comment there, I think, Ms Smith, that we don't have any state-funded large facilities, and that's probably pretty true of just about anything you can think of on the Central Coast. And it is high time, I think, that the government at the state level certainly recognise that having the Central Coast as one of the 6 cities, that we do get some infrastructure that is commensurate with the fact that we are seen as one of the 6 cities. And the fact that we don't have anything at this point in time really to show for it, although I must confess it's a good start with getting the $8.5 million to be able to start the process of looking at the waterfront, the business case and the other requirements for infrastructure, etc., that are required there. So with that, just happy to move the adoption of that and that submission, and we've noted it. Item 2.13, which is the Service New South Wales for Business Partnership Agreement. Basically, this report's just seeking approval to endorse the partnership agreement with Service New South Wales. Service New South Wales have just rebranded themselves recently under the name of Service New South Wales for Business. We currently have an agreement, as do other councils. So basically all we're doing is we're updating that agreement to reflect the new partnership, and really this is just about endorsing the fact that we want to have that partnership agreement with Service New South Wales. What it means is that we actually work together over hopefully resolving some of the bureaucratic swings and roundabouts when people are requiring things, where they're setting up businesses and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully it makes it simpler by working together. So with that, we will adopt that new agreement and endorse that new partnership as per the resolution shown on the screen. Item 2.14, the Community Support Grant Program. Again, this is a monthly program. I note that there's quite a number of people who are going to receive money this year, this month, and we're proposing to allocate a sum of approximately $30,000. The beneficiaries from this are the Uniting Church and Australia Property Trust on behalf of the Gosford Uniting Church, Hardies Bay Community Church, Arimba Region Residents Association Incorporated, Coastal Archipelago, Coast and Country Primary Care, Special Olympics Australia, Umina United Soccer Club Incorporated, the Matcham Holgate Cricket Club Incorporated, and Northern Lakes Junior Rugby League Football Club Incorporated are all going to be beneficiaries. So that's great, and hopefully that, they will be able to do good things. So with that, we will move those recommendations as shown on the screen. Item 2.15 is the application for a memorial seat for Mrs. Coral Burnham. And it's great that people are keen to actually put something back to keep in people's minds some of the really good things that some people in our community did. So whilst that person who's passed away obviously has done great deeds, I also have to thank very much the people who think about actually putting together the application, and of course we require it to be funded and we require it to be looked after and so on. So the people who actually do that, donating and putting that together, I have the highest respect for. So it's great to be able to see that we can do this sort of thing. So I'm more than happy to approve the application for a memorial seat to acknowledge the contribution of Mrs. Burnham to the community of Mannering Park. And that's followed up actually by another one, item 2.16, which is the application for a memorial seat for Mr. Aaron Costa. And again, it's the same story. Very great to see that a group of people have actually said, we want to recognise Mr Costa for the community work that he's done and around Tuggerah Lakes and his extensive charity work that he's done throughout his life. So again, I'm very happy to approve that application for the memorial seat for item 2.6. So we'll move those recommendations as shown on the screen. And with that, that brings us to the close of tonight's meeting at 7:50 exactly. So thank you for your attendance and thank you for those who continue to watch us through on the internet. And I will come up briefly up the top if anyone wants to have a yarn.